Scene script. Picture this: a meticulous model railroader, hours into crafting the perfect railway, only to have a mischievous cat send the entire setup into chaos. Welcome, dear listeners, to the captivating world of model railroading. This is a realm where precision, patience, and passion collide, where miniature worlds are crafted with an artist's touch and an engineer's mind. Our enthusiasts, or should we say railroaders, are dedicated individuals who spend countless hours perfecting every tiny detail. From the quaint station houses to the gleaming locomotives, every piece tells a story. But sometimes, these finely tuned, meticulously crafted worlds come under threat, often from the most unlikely of sources. Today we share with you a tale of such an incident. Imagine our model railroader deep in concentration, carefully placing the last miniature tree in the picturesque landscape, when suddenly, a feline whirlwind enters the scene. Yes, you've guessed it right. It's the family cat, known for its curiosity and, unfortunately in this case, its knack for causing chaos. With a swish of a tail and a leap of feline agility, the cat sends the model trains, the meticulously painted station house, and even the tiny plastic people flying in all directions. The once serene landscape is now a scene of utter devastation, a great train wreck, if you will. You might think that this would be a moment of despair for our railroader, yet he takes it in stride, with a shake of his head and a chuckle. After all, model railroading isn't just about creating a perfect miniature world. It's about the journey, the challenges, and yes, even the unexpected train wrecks. So the next time you see a model railroader carefully crafting their miniature world, spare a thought for the unseen challenges they face. From derailments to feline disasters, these enthusiasts navigate it all with a sense of humor and a love for their craft. And that, my friends, is why model railroaders often have a love-hate relationship with their pets. Now imagine a model train that runs on its own, even when you've unplugged the power. Spooky, isn't it? Well, let me tell you a delightful tale about a railway enthusiast named Reginald, a chap who experienced this very phenomenon. You see, Reginald was a fervent model railroader, his passion matched only by his curiosity. One day he noticed something quite peculiar about his beloved model train. Even when he unplugged it, the train continued to chug along, as if powered by some invisible force. Baffled, he scratched his head, inspecting the model train, the tracks, the power supply, but found nothing amiss. He even tried shaking the train a bit, hoping to jolt it back to reality. But no, the train persisted, seemingly intent on its ghostly journey. Reginald's confusion turned into fascination. Was his train haunted? Was it possessed by the spirit of some long-dead locomotive? Or was it simply a case of his model train developing a mind of its own? The mystery deepened until one day, Reginald had an epiphany. He had been shuffling around in his fluffy slippers while operating the train. And as we all know, fluffy slippers and carpet can be a potent combination for generating static electricity. Was it possible? Could his ghost train actually be a static train? To test his theory, he took off his slippers, touched a grounded metal object to discharge any built-up static, and then, cautiously, approached the train. Lo and behold, the moment he discharged the static, the train came to an abrupt halt. It was static electricity all along, not any spectral shenanigans. Reginald couldn't help but laugh at his own folly. So folks, remember to discharge static before running your trains, unless you fancy a ghost train of your own. How big is too big? In the world of model railroading, that's a question with some hilarious answers. Let me take you on a journey to the quaint town of Scale Mismatchville. Picture this: a model railroader, let's call him Bob, is eagerly awaiting his latest purchase. Now Bob isn't a novice, he's been at this hobby for years, and his eye for detail is practically legendary in the local railroading community. His miniature world is a marvel, with its intricate landscapes and small-scale trains chugging along the tracks, all perfectly proportioned. But one fine day, Bob makes a slight miscalculation. He's ordered a new locomotive for his setup, but in his excitement he overlooks one crucial detail: the scale. Now, for those of you unacquainted with model railroading lingo, scale refers to the size of the model in relation to its real-world counterpart. So imagine Bob's surprise when the delivery truck pulls up with a box that's far too big to be just another small-scale addition to his collection. The delivery driver unloads a model train that's more suited to a garden railway than Bob's delicate setup. But our friend Bob isn't one to be easily derailed. He looks at this monster train and sees not a problem, but a challenge. A hilarious brainstorming session ensues. He contemplates building an oversized tunnel, a giant bridge, even a colossal station to accommodate his new acquisition. But in the end, he settles on a simple yet cheeky solution, a giant's world corner in his setup where his oversized locomotive would look perfectly at home. And thus, the monster train finds its place in Bob's world, causing quite the chuckle among his fellow model railroaders. It's a gentle reminder that even in a hobby as precise as this, there's always room for a bit of fun and creativity. So, when ordering a new model train, always double-check the scale or you might end up with a monster train like our friend here. They say Rome wasn't built in a day. The same can be said for model railroads, as one enthusiast learned the hard way. Picture this. A model railroader, let's call him Bob, decided to embark on a grand project. He dreamt of creating a sprawling model railroad that would be the envy of all his friends. In his mind, he envisioned intricate tracks winding through miniature mountains, tunnels, and towns, with trains zipping around in a symphony of precision and perfection. What he didn't anticipate, however, was the sheer scale of his ambition. Bob started with gusto, laying the first tracks and constructing the first buildings. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and before he knew it, a year had passed. But Bob's dream railroad was far from complete. The tracks were laid haphazardly, the buildings were half built, and the trains, well, they were more off the rails than on them. But Bob wasn't discouraged. He was a model railroader after all, and patience was his middle name, or so he claimed. He continued to toil away, one tiny railroad tie at a time. He spent countless nights hunched over his work, squinting at the tiny details, and cursing whenever a miniature figure toppled over. There were moments of triumph, of course, like the time he finally completed a particularly tricky tunnel, or when he managed to get a tiny steam engine to puff out miniature smoke. But these moments were fleeting, quickly overshadowed by the enormity of the task at hand. And so Bob's project continued. It became a never-ending labor of love, a testament to his dedication to the hobby. His friends began to joke that Bob's model railroad was like the painting of the Fourth Bridge, a task so monumental that by the time it was finished, it was time to start over again. But Bob took it all in stride. He knew that model railroading wasn't about the destination, but the journey. Each tiny detail, each painstakingly laid track, each miniature figure was a step on his lifelong adventure. And that's why, dear friends, they say model railroading isn't just a hobby, it's a lifetime adventure. As we've seen today, model railroading can be full of unexpected surprises and laughter. From the great train wreck that was a sight to behold, to the ghost train that mysteriously navigates its way around the track, we've journeyed through a world that's as fascinating as it is hilarious. It's not just about miniature landscapes and perfectly painted models. It's also about the scale conundrums that can lead to some pretty amusing situations. Picture a colossal locomotive trying to squeeze through a tiny tunnel, or a miniature passenger waving at you from a window. The scale of the absurdity is, quite frankly, off the charts. And let's not forget the never-ending project. The joys of tirelessly working on a model railroad, only to find it constantly evolving and, more often than not, taking a comedic turn. A misplaced bridge here, an unexpected derailment there, it's all part of the fun. But what's even more exciting is hearing about your tales of model railroading. The laughter that comes from shared stories, the camaraderie that is formed around these miniature worlds, it's all part of the bigger picture. So next time you see a model train, remember, behind each tiny locomotive, there could be a tale of ghost trains, monster locomotives, or mischievous cats. Until next time, keep those trains running and your spirits high.
Once upon a time in a world not so different from ours, cats ruled the railways, the model railways, that is. Picture this, a feline named Whiskers, with a coat as sleek as a steam engine and eyes as bright as signal lamps, fancied himself the master conductor of a model railway set. Now Whiskers wasn't your average tabby, oh no. He was a feline of ambition, a cat with a dream. He saw that tiny model train chugging around its tracks and he decided he was going to be the conductor. He'd perch on the arm of the sofa, tail twitching, eyes locked on the miniature locomotive plotting his course. Then, with a leap as graceful as a gazelle's and as accurate as a well-timed train schedule, he'd land smack dab in the middle of the model railway town, He'd try to squeeze his well-fed self into the tiny locomotive, but alas, his ambitions were larger than the scale of the model train. Undeterred, Whiskers would switch tactics. He'd bat at the miniature trees lining the tracks, scattering them like leaves in the wind. His paw would swipe with the speed and precision of a switchman flipping the track switch, sending the model train off on a new route. And oh, the chase of the imaginary mouse. Whiskers, in his role as conductor, deemed it his duty to protect his railway from these tiny trespassers. He'd pounce and chase, and in the process hilariously derail the train, causing a mini disaster in the model town. Yet, despite the chaos, Whiskers would purr with satisfaction, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the chase and the joy of his make-believe world. Because you see, to Whiskers, this wasn't just a model railway, it was his kingdom, his adventure, his story. So, you see, Whiskers had a grand old time, even if the passengers of his imaginary railway journey did not. If you think Whiskers was a handful, wait till you meet Miss Fluffy Paws. This feline furball is an expert at crafting chaos and confusion with her owner's model train set, and boy does she have fun doing it. Now Miss Fluffy Paws is no ordinary cat. She's a perfectly mischievous feline with a knack for turning a calm afternoon of model railroading into a roller coaster of laughter. You see, she has this uncanny ability to find the most inconvenient spots to park her fluffy self, right on the tracks. Imagine the scene, a meticulously planned train schedule thrown into disarray, all thanks to a cat-induced traffic jam. But that's not all. Oh no, Miss Fluffy Paws isn't content with just lounging on the tracks. She's got a keen eye for moving objects, and those tiny train cars whizzing by are just too tempting. With a swift swipe of her paw, she sends them flying off the rails, turning a smooth journey into an unexpected derailment. Her owner can't help but chuckle even as he's picking up the toppled train cars. And then there's the time she decided that the model train station was the perfect place for a cat nap. Picture this, a peaceful model town suddenly facing an unforeseen natural disaster. A slumbering cat, buildings toppled, trees uprooted, and the station itself? Well, let's just say it became a cozy bed for our fluffy saboteur. Through her antics, Miss Fluffy Paws has turned the quiet hobby of model railroading into a lively game of cat and mouse. Or should we say cat and train? She's a constant reminder that even the smallest disruptions can lead to the biggest laughs. And while her owner might grumble as he resets his model town for the umpteenth time, there's no denying the twinkle in his eye. Because in the end, it's not about the perfect train ride, but the joy and laughter that comes from sharing this hobby with his feline friend. Miss Fluffy Paws, the perfect saboteur, certainly knew how to keep her owner on his toes. From conductors to saboteurs, we now turn to passengers. Meet Tigger, the adventurous feline who loved a good ride. Now, Tigger was no ordinary cat. He was a feline with a taste for the finer things in life, and by finer things, we mean a good old-fashioned model train ride. You see, Tigger had a sense of adventure that was only matched by his impeccable timing. He could often be found poised and patient waiting at the model train station. Yes, you heard it right. This cat knew the train schedule better than most humans know their own coffee routine. As the miniature locomotive would chug into the station, Tigger would spring into action. With the grace of a seasoned commuter, he'd hop aboard and settle himself comfortably on the train. His eyes, bright with anticipation, would watch as the world outside began to move. The tiny trees, the miniature houses, and the little folks that populated this model world would whiz past him. To Tigger, it was more than just a ride around a track. It was an adventure, a daily voyage into an exciting world. But what was truly remarkable was Tigger's demeanor during these trips. He wasn't just sitting there, he was a passenger. He would watch the landscape with keen interest, occasionally twitching his tail in delight as the train chugged along. He was calm, composed, and thoroughly enjoying his journey. It was as though he was born for this, born to ride the rails, albeit the model ones. And so, day after day, Tigger would embark on his adventures around the model world, a regular passenger on the Kitty Express. His daily commute was a spectacle that brought joy and laughter to those lucky enough to witness it. It was a perfect blend of the unexpected and the amusing, a cat on a model train living his best life. Tigger, the most well-traveled house cat in town, certainly enjoyed his daily commute on the Kitty Express. From joyrides to collisions, model train sets have seen it all, especially when a cat named Shadow is involved. Now let's take a moment to appreciate Shadow. the feline force of nature who has a knack for turning a peaceful model train setup into a scene straight out of an action movie. Shadow, with his jet black fur and eyes as gleaming as the headlights of an oncoming train, has a rather unique hobby. This peculiar pastime involves strategically placing his favorite toys on the model train tracks. Now you might think, that's cute, he's playing conductor. Well, let's just say these aren't your everyday stops at the station. His owner, a model train enthusiast with a heart as big as his beloved railroad, is always on his toes thanks to Shadow's antics. With each new day comes a fresh obstacle course on the tracks, courtesy of our furry friend here. It's a game of cat and train, and it's clear who's running the show. Shadow's toys aren't the only things making their way onto the tracks. Oh no, Shadow takes it up a notch. From plush mice to jingle balls and even the occasional catnip-stuffed fish, Shadow ensures that no journey on his owner's model railway is ever a smooth one. These unexpected obstacles often lead to dramatic and, dare I say, hilarious collisions. Picture this: a meticulously crafted steam locomotive chugging along only to be derailed by a squeaky rubber duck. It's a sight that would make anyone chuckle. But don't worry, no trains or toys are harmed in the making of these catastrophes. It's all in good fun. And let's face it, it adds a whole new level of excitement to the world of model railroading. Shadow's owner, despite the constant chaos, takes it all in stride. After all, what's a model railroad without a little unpredictability? It's clear that Shadow, the master of disaster, certainly knew how to keep things interesting on the model railway. From conductors to passengers, saboteurs to catastrophe creators, our feline friends have definitely left their mark on the world of model railroading. Let's take a trip down the memory track, shall we? We've had cats donning the conductor's cap, proving that they can run the show just as well as any human, if not better. And who can forget the perfect sabotage where our furry friends showed off their cunning and stealth, leaving us in stitches and our trains in, well, less than perfect condition. Then we journeyed on the Kitty Express, where our cats proved they make for not just good conductors but also entertaining passengers. And of course the catastrophic collision where the world of model trains met the unpredictable chaos of cat antics, giving us all a good laugh. So, next time you see a cat eyeing your model train set, remember, you might just be on the track to a whole new level of feline fun.